Today we're talking about an artist whose colorful practice spans the verdant vistas of the English countryside to red rock country out west and the blue swimming pools that dot LA. We are of course talking about the one and only David Hockney. This is Several Circles. Now, some of you may have indulged an existing interest in Hockney's work or just acquainted yourselves with his 6-decade career at the blockbuster retrospective that traveled from Tate Britain in London to the Centre Pompidou in Paris before closing right here in New York City at the Met. And if you were among the record-breaking hordes of visitors to each location, you know that David Hockney is a phenomenon. Now 81 years old and still making new art, Hockney has garnered international acclaim, mainly for his jewel-tone paintings of poolside life in California, where he created masterpieces like A Bigger Splash in 1967 and Portrait of an Artist, Pool with Two Figures in 1972. Hockney fell in love with LA on a visit in the early 60s and established a studio out there a few years later. But he's actually from the northern English county of Yorkshire, and he likewise created a number of paintings depicting the lush, undulating terrain of his hometown. But Hockney's subjects are by no means limited to hills and pools. He also made waves with his luminous portraiture, and he unabashedly illustrated his identity at a time when homosexuality was illegal in the UK. So it makes sense that the sunny optimism in Hockney's more established work is notably absent from his early drawings and sketches from the 1950s through around 1961. These formative works showcase an uncharacteristically dark color palette and abstracted elements found in paintings by the likes of Irish figurative painter Francis Bacon and the French painter and sculptor Jean Dubuffet. But Hockney's early stuff is paramount to understanding what poised him for such wild success. Despite their almost David Lynchian qualities, works like Cha 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 that was danced in the early hours of 24th March 1961, and Myself and My Heroes also from 1961, wink at the Technicolor personality behind these shadowy images. Now, The Hypnotist, for example, which Hockney painted only a couple years later, illustrates the artist's penchant for portraiture and conveys a kind of buzzing theatrical energy that preempts the string of famous double portraits like American Collectors, Fred and Marcia Wiseman, or Mr. and Mrs. Clark and Percy that Hockney made in California in the 60s and 70s. Considering the expanse of Hockney's multidisciplinary practice, from his foray into photographic collage in the 80s to his more recent iPad drawings, his spatial perspectives have always been particularly notable. Hockney has chosen to largely contradict the popular vanishing point concept in art, which dictates that in order to indicate distance, all lines need to converge at a common point on the horizon. Hockney's regular defiance of what he considered to be this limiting technique accounts for his unusually formatted landscapes, some of which even sport an atypical canvas shape. In recent years, Hockney went as far as to reverse perspective, with indoor scenes that combine photography and painting to conjure greater depth and dimension. His newest works exhibit his experimentation with inverting the vanishing point principle to expand the confines of an image. Hockney's remarkable perspective on perspective comes from a long-standing fascination with art theory, historical techniques, and global viewpoints. Decades of research yielded multiple books on these matters, like Secret Knowledge, about the visual devices and techniques of the old masters, and A History of Pictures from the Cave to the Computer Screen, which explores how artists through time have depicted the world around them. These are pretty momentous achievements for one artist, so it's not too surprising that this fall, in 2018, Hockney is poised to become the most expensive living artist at auction. Portrait of an Artist, Pool with Two Figures, which is actually the only painting in which Hockney unites the two subjects that he's most famous for, pools and double portraits, and which is widely regarded as the artist's magnum opus, is hitting the auction block at Christie's New York in November, where it's estimated to sell for a cool $80 million. If it sells anywhere near its current estimate, it will surpass the current record for a living artist, which is held by Jeff Koons for his $58.4 million orange balloon dog. Hockney has made an astounding contribution to the spheres of mid-20th and 21st century art. Luckily for us, even at 81, he shows no signs of slowing down. That's all for this week. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to Several Circles for the many profiles to come on historic, modern, and contemporary artists from around the world.